Welcome to the Human Frequency. We're back after a short hiatus, and I want to thank everybody for all that support during the Etsy debacle. That was part of why we had a little hiatus from the show, is things were a little bit hairy in the world of e-commerce.
Yeah, we had to take a little time to straighten things out, assess the situation, and, when something really crazy like that happens, you tend to just kind of overreact, and perhaps we did, perhaps we did not, but the fact is, when you just kind of go to bed and you get up the next morning and you look at things, with a clean slate, it's a lot better, and ultimately you get a lot more done, and yeah, it's going to take a little while for us to figure out our next option, but we are on Etsy for now, but it's not indefinite. So we will, as our message says, we're continuing to offer the best quality pieces at the best possible price indefinitely.
We're on Etsy for now, pretty much. And the reason we're able to stay, I think that Gabriel really cleaned the slate with Etsy, because that letter that was sent, it was an email message sent that pretty much said that they're in violation of the law, and it was signed off on behalf of a registered business entity, which is Gabriel Lazar Cohen. I think they did take it very seriously. So yeah. They ended the experiment where they jacked up everyone's prices, and we've been selling on Etsy again, and it's been okay. Now they've got their little bugs and everything, but right now it's working. So please, continue to come visit our shop and see if there's something that tickles your fancy.
For now,
yeah,
we're on there.
But we're working on getting off of there and having our own shop. It's a little more work than we thought, and it's tough doing your own e-commerce. This is what the consensus is on this, is people need sites like Etsy, especially simple craftspeople all over rural America, which is actually most of the people on Etsy. And it really helps to have sites like that. So we're actually hoping the next one pops up to take over when Etsy gets bought out by eBay and goes the way of MySpace.
And we all know how painful that can
be. Well, the other great piece of news is I've been getting some articles published in the New Agora out of Vancouver, BC. So check out New Agora. They've got lots of great articles. I want to thank Lorenzo for publishing my work. I have articles about lately the mind control matrix. I have articles in past issues on the weather war in California and how it's being won. And we are definitely giving them a wallop. There's been disinfo out on the web about man-made rain. The men making rain are the men and women distributing orgonite, and it's good. Rain is good. What happened? We were worried about drought, and now it's raining again, and we're complaining about rain. Let's enjoy these great positive changes.
Well, the controlled opposition will find a way to put a negative spin on anything at all, even if they have to just make it up. So that's pretty much par for the course. But yeah, the New Agora has been a very nice publication. That's newagora.ca, by the way, and that's CA for Canada, not California, just in case you're wondering.
No, we're not a country of California yet, but there's no countries anymore. It's all corporations. That's what they said, and they live, and it's absolutely true.
Well, it's all business entities.
Exactly.
Because with corporations, there's strings attached.
But with your own business entity that's on your birth certificate, if you use it instead of lose it, then you're winning the game.
That's right. And we've been dealing with a bunch of hysteria lately. No surprise there.
Let's like we're
dealing with that every day. But yes, let's talk about 5G.
5G. I'm getting emails and petitions, and people are scared and they're freaking out. What is 5G, and why is everybody so upset about it? 5G is the new internet system going in, or a mobile network system going in. It's in the air, it's EMF, it's just like 4G, but supposed to be way faster and way closer to home. So they're going to be putting it throughout cities. It's going to be antennas throughout the blocks on the utility poles, supposedly. It's going to be much, much faster and much more in your face than the current 4G. And there's a lot of fear going on right now because of the increased radiation.
Mm-hmm. But there's kind of an air of mystery around it because there's nothing official about it yet. It's all kind of a lot of speculation and it's in its pre-stages. So it's not being rolled out yet, but there's just a lot of talk. And, when you're dealing with talk, unfortunately, you are oftentimes dealing with the absence of facts. So it takes a lot of work to kind of dig through what is out there and A, not just take what you're being told at face value, but B, to just try and determine what's going on there? Because we all have our own intuition about it,
Let's talk about what the representatives of telecommunications companies are saying first, because my first exposure to the idea of 5G came from people who know about EMF, not from the cell phone companies, because I don't pay attention to that because I don't care for the smartphone fad.
And it is a fad.
Yeah. So anyway, the first words I heard about that were hysteria, basically. People who were very scared about this being right outside their houses and being so much more unhealthy than what we currently have, which is already no picnic. Well, I went straight to the horse's mouth and I wanted to see what the representatives of telecommunications companies said. A representative from Verizon touts 5G as being a great way to stream data and download data. For example, this is the huge game changer for all of us. We're all very excited about what the Verizon rep said. We can now download Game of Thrones, which used to take a whole hour to download the whole series. We can now download the entire series of Game of Thrones in 1 minute. Well, I'm sold. My life is completely better now. I'm very excited about this.
Well, even a minute is too long. I want it in less than 5 seconds.
I want it downloaded straight to my brain. Okay. So the reason for the 5G...
And this is the actual example.
I know. I laughed when he said it, because his example of why we're putting in this fast network, or they're putting in a fast network, is so we can download Game of Thrones so much faster. 1 minute, I got the whole series. That's great. Well, get all your violence that you need in 1 minute. And the representative from Nokia that I listened to said that this is mostly actually, again, for video streaming, entertainment, faster video streaming, and driverless cars. So currently the driverless car is a self-operating mechanism, but it's supposed to be communicating with the other cars, with the towers, the little, 5G antennas around the city. Mm-hmm. So the driverless cars. So we've got this wonderful technology being brought to us on behalf of HBO and driverless cars, and I'm just so thrilled to be able to now rot my brain a little faster.
Well, I see nothing but driverless cars. Well, I technically see drivers in the cars, but the fact that they're passing for drivers is really a stretch.
Good point. And this is something I thought about when the driverless cars started coming out and being mentioned. That is a car powered by a computer or driven by a computer. How is that different from a car driven by a human being who's being controlled by a computer? Because every human being I see driving a car is looking at a screen, not the road. They're looking at the cell phone and the GPS. So if the car's already being controlled by a computer controlling a human controlling the car, I say cut out the middleman.
Well, that's the thing. The only difference is there's just one more link in the chain. What's at the origin, what's at the source, that's still the computer.
Hey, maybe there'll be less accidents when the computer is driving the car directly instead of going through man-made, or a man made to be connected with a machine. Anyway, we don't know. Only the future can tell us what the driverless cars will do, but that's one of the big reasons for 5G being rolled out. But according to PC Mag, and this is an article from back in May, and I haven't really heard any newer updates from this, there is no official definition yet, and there's no standard for deployment yet. Wikipedia says that the 5G is the proposed next communication standard beyond the current 4G IMT standards. That's what the exact definition is. The definition, therefore, is undefined. They don't really know yet. What they do know is that it's going to allow for a higher density of devices to be connected to the internet. That would be the Internet of Things. So they want the devices communicating amongst each other. So everything communicates. That's why the new digital cameras have Wi-Fi in them. And that's why I went online and found an old digital camera model that didn't have Wi-Fi, because I'm not participating in the Internet of Things.
And we'll get more to the non-participating factor later, because that's the most important thing here. Now, the thing I noticed is this organization, the Next Generation Mobile Networks Alliance, which I call NIGMNA, they define what the 5G standard should be, and what NIGMNA has to say about it. That's really a mouthful right there, NIGMNA.
It's sort of like NAMBLA.
Yeah. Anyway, what NIGMNA says is the 5G standard should be this way. They give all these ideas, but again, it's just this very vague, nebulous kind of plan. And
it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
They say they want thousands of users getting tens of megabits per second. I have the slowest internet in our mountain community here. It's excruciating, but I would take that any day over the 5G network. But we don't have to participate in 5G. Of course, we're going to get more into that. What is it all about? It's about virtual reality, entertainment, driverless cars, and smart cities.
Smart cities.
Well, we left the city again, and that's another thing is the city is becoming a bigger and bigger scam. And we've even seen articles recently that point to the fact that people in their 30s are now moving out of cities to suburbs because there's no point in dealing with the city anymore. So we're seeing these trends that are changing. People are finally realizing, even in the most mainstream, that living in the city is not where it's at. And this is a great way, the cities are a great way to keep people controlled. And that's what the Agenda 21 is all about, is getting everybody herded in there. And then they want to put in these networks and control everybody. But here's the thing. We're already doing this.
Yeah.
This is not that much different. And again, one of the representatives of Nokia said that currently the 4G is enough to do everything that's already happening. So when you're talking about the surveillance, the smart meters, and all these things that are already happening, they don't even need 5G for that. So when we're afraid that 5G is going to be so much worse than 4G, keep in mind that
4G's here.
It's already here, and it's already terrible. So, we really have to start looking at what are we doing? Why are we participating in this? And that's the big one for me, is for all the complaining I get about 5G, I can guarantee you that every message I've received on the topic has been sent via smartphone or over a wireless network. So let's take a look at what we're doing in our lives now and why 5G is coming in. It's coming in because we're allowing it, because we participate in it. People are so upset over 5G. They've got Wi-Fi's in their houses. They've got iPhones they carry everywhere. It's so strange to be so worried about something new and bad when you're already doing it to yourself. If you get rid of the stuff that you already have and you don't participate in 5G, you're so far ahead of everyone else. Because keep in mind, the 5G, as bad as it sounds, it's outside your house. And distance is your friend. Mm-hmm. That's what Lloyd Burrell from Electric Sense said. Distance is your friend. So I do want to also mention that this was announced recently. AT&T announced 5G evolution. And this is just the beginning, okay? This is just the beginning of 5G.
It's not really 5G proper.
Right.
As it were.
It's just a sort of an upgrade of 4G. So 4G will still be used for broader coverage and in rural areas. So again, if you can get yourself out of the city, if you're fortunate enough to be able to do that, which I think everyone can do, because usually people say, oh, I stay in the city because I have my job there and I need to make money. Once you get out to the country, you're paying so much less to live. It would amaze you how much less you need to make.
And there's other ways to make money than just what's going on in the cities, or even worse, the soon-to-be smart cities. I mean, I go into LA about every 2 weeks. I don't see the city getting any smarter. I see it getting dumber each trip I make.
Well, yeah, and actually in the new Agora that just came out, there was a little link to an article about how just having a smartphone, even if it's off, reduces your cognitive ability. This is what I've been saying for such a long time, is just having that thing emitting near you is making you stupid.
And I'm going to repeat that little bit again. Even when it's off.
Right, because it's always emitting the location data because it's a tracking device and they want to know where you are. And so if you can get yourself out to a rural area, you won't be as susceptible to the problems of 5G. And anyway, the thing is, it's not even here yet. Pre-5G internet is coming first, and it's going to be for wireless internet in your home. So this was actually good news to me, because if it's for wireless internet in your home, the way it's going to work is this. Yes, there's going to be antennas on the street, supposedly. I mean, that's what they say they're going to do. They haven't done it yet. And in order to bring it into your house, you're going to need one of their modems that goes in a window facing the antenna to bring the system in. And then that modem will broadcast it into your home. What they want is one device after another to broadcast the signal. So they actually want the 5G broadcasting inside buildings. If you don't participate and you don't get the 5G modem, I mean, you don't sign up with one of these companies, because they're doing this to compete with cable. So you can keep your cable internet fiber optic cables and go Ethernet hardwired. If you don't participate, you're not bringing it into your home. And they were even talking about the difficulties of bringing it into the home if the window's on the wrong side of the house. So if you think about that, there's a buffer zone. It actually has to be brought in. So don't be totally scared about it.
Yeah,
don't
don't
participate
participate
in it. So don't bring it into your house. And so the standard for 5G altogether won't even be set till 2018. They don't know yet. But this is definitely a method of competition with cable internet, which tends to be overpriced. I know it is. I mean, our satellite internet here is overpriced. But I don't really love satellite because it's in the air too, but it's not the same thing as wireless, and we don't really have that many choices. So there's no wireless modem in the house. So we're not being blasted with this all the time. I can get the ones from my neighbors' houses, but only a few because we're in a rural area.
And again, distance is your friend, as Lloyd Burrell says.
So what they're going to be doing with 5G is they're going to be working on higher frequencies, and that's what's worrying a lot of people because these high frequencies disrupt the communication of cells in the body. This is already being done by our current wireless technology. If you've got a smartphone now, if you even have an older smartphone from the early 2000s, it's going to be disrupting your body's natural function. So with the 5G, people are worried it's going to be even worse because it's higher frequencies. But these frequencies work on shorter distances. So the current cell towers, they have a much wider reach, which probably explains why you can put a tower buster even a quarter mile away from one and have it neutralize it.
Right.
So the 5G, it's a different situation, but the shorter distance is a good thing. Count your blessings that it is a shorter distance and don't get the 5G modem.
Don't participate.
Don't participate.
I feel like we're going to say this 100 more times.
So the pre-5G started to be introduced this year in 2017. The first official 5G will be in 2018. And how about this word? There's going to be broader deployment. So obviously it's a weapon system in 2019 ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
ahead of schedule.
Not really hiding much with that word.
Right. But the thing is, again, with the energy weapons, which I talk about a lot, the energy weapons are here. We live with them now. The cell towers are energy weapons against us. The devices we bring into our homes and welcome into our lives with open arms are energy weapons. And people snicker at me and they laugh at me. Even people who are of a higher consciousness.
Allegedly.
They make fun when I say that the cell phone is hurting them. And when I explain that if you are practicing healing work, shamanic work, anything that has to do with the mind's power and the connection to the source of creation, that connection and that power gets cut by these interfering frequencies. And they think they're immune. I get so many people that just dismiss me when I say it. They just sort of change the subject or roll their eyes or just kind of laugh a little and then continue using the phone.
Well, Sharon, it's part denial, but it's also part addiction to those frequencies. And I don't think anyone's readily willing to admit that they have a DOR addiction or an EMF addiction, but many people do. And you can see it walking around in rural areas just as much as you can in the cities. It's widespread. And again, the answer for everything is don't participate.
Yeah, it's very hard to look at your own life and see this stuff, but if you're afraid of 5G and worried about it, you've got to take a look at what you're using right now and cut it off at the source. 5G is coming in because people are accepting it. They want it, they like it, they accept it. I gave up the cell phone. I didn't even have a smartphone. I gave up the dumb phone when we moved out of Los Angeles. And the new phone we have, the smartphone that we bought, it's on like 5 hours a month? I'm trying to estimate.
Something like that.
So
it's only on when absolutely necessary, and the rest of the time it's off and wrapped in foil.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, too, I thought about it. If I moved back to LA, would I get a smartphone again? I think what I'd probably end up doing is having one, again, that was off most of the time and wrapped in foil and only using it in emergencies or if I needed to reach somebody, if it was absolutely essential. So I could see myself even going back to city life without a smartphone. But yeah, when I left LA, that was it for the smartphone, and I don't miss it at all.
It's funny, there was a cell phone faux pas in the series finale of Seinfeld that we were watching last night.
Yeah, it's great. This is only 19 years ago,
Yeah,
too.
from
It's 98. And Elaine makes a phone call to a friend whose dad is in the hospital. And she does it from her cell phone on the street. And Jerry and George
Which
just,
looks like a brick, by the way. I mean,
yeah,
this
they were
is almost 20-year-old
a
cell
little bit
phone.
bigger back then. Yeah, Jerry and George give her a hard time about it. They say it's such a faux pas. I mean,
Oh,
how
they
could you do that?
lambast her.
Yeah. You know, making an important call like that on a cell phone on the street, you got to do that from home. And then that, of course, went into the call waiting face off, and then the airplane call, which is also bad. So what's going on is back then, we're only looking at 19 years ago. If somebody needed you and needed your friendship, it was considered a faux pas to call them on a cell phone or an airplane or to use the call. Even the call waiting was a faux pas. So we're looking at a total change of thinking from back then, when if your friend was in trouble and you wanted to give her a call, or if there's an important occasion like a birthday or anything like that, you do not do it from a cell phone on the street. That is considered totally rude. Nowadays, people just text it or put it on Facebook.
Nobody even calls anymore.
Nobody calls. So we're looking at an addicted population. They've taken the bait, and the bait is mind control poison, and you're taking it in your pocket, and you're taking it in your home, and you're scared of 5G, and you're emailing on the cell phone and on the Wi-Fi. So think about it for a minute, and you've got to get that stuff out of your life now.
Don't participate.
Exactly.
I feel like we should have a counter in the bottom corner of the screen here that goes up every time we say don't participate. See, it just went up one more time.
Well, and I don't want to put anyone down for being worried about 5G. I totally understand. When I first heard about it, I thought, how are we going to tackle this one? We put out the orgonite by the cell towers, and that's taken us 3 years already to distribute about 5,000 of them, which is great, but it takes a long time. And we try to do it strategically because it does get pricey and you have to drive long ways. You want to cover as much area as possible. So I thought, how are we going to do this now if they're putting this many antennas in the city? Well, the answer to neutralizing that is, first off, there's orgonite already placed around a lot of cities that will take care of it to a degree. The thing is that orgonite neutralizes but doesn't eliminate the frequencies. What I really see as the answer here is simply non-participation, because it's already an electromagnetic soup out there. And when they put the 5G in, it's not going to be that much different than it is now. I think there's a little bit more concern about it than is founded. For example, we're learning that from DARPA's website, that the military created 5G. So we do see that it is a weapon, but we also see DARPA putting it out there. If they're putting it out there, they want you to know about it. It's not a secret, right? And we're also seeing that NATO nations will have 5G. So people are very paranoid because it looks like these certain countries are getting together for a surveillance grid and directed energy weapons. I got news for you. It's already happening. It's already like that. So if NATO and DARPA are putting out this information, we do have to take it with a grain of salt because they might just be trying to scare us. And if I learned from my past, anything that was put out by the government that I use as evidence, for example, about weather modification, like using the paper from the Air Force, weather as a force multiplier, owning the weather in 2025. That's the big one that's put out by the Air Force.
Yeah.
If it's put out by the Air Force, they want you to know about it. And furthermore, a lot of what they're saying is being done in weather modification is actually extraterrestrial activity, not human and not military at all. So they're just trying to divert our attention from who's really doing it. One, because there's a huge cover-up of that. And two, they want us to think they're all powerful, which they are definitely not. And this leads me to a really cool hypothesis or theory that Gabriel came up with. And I want you to talk about the NSA hoax a little bit.
Yeah, I had a light bulb, of course, an incandescent light bulb, go off above my head, and oh my God, I just realized it. The NSA is a hoax. They don't even exist. They're nothing. You know, we are energetic beings. We can manifest on a quantum field. This is known. This is proven by even mainstream science knows this. Well, it got to the point where they couldn't deny it anymore, but they know it. And my point is, they can sense what we are broadcasting and manifesting. They don't need a bunch of little techie dorks crowded around a computer screen spying on some 40-year-old in his mom's basement eating potato chips and drinking Sprite all day. They don't need
And
that.
looking at porn.
I was trying to leave that part out. Spare our listeners. But seriously, it just doesn't make sense. Again, the NSA is just another cover-up, I think. They're not real.
If the government says it, it's fake.
That's right. I mean, look what happened with Dane Wigington. Are you going to believe this guy who's just putting out fear porn? Or are you going to be part of the solution?
Well, that was also a big one for me, was that realization about Dane, and pretty much every single human being in the anti-geoengineering movement. Any one of them that doesn't mention orgone energy, I can't listen to them because they don't know what they're talking about. So whatever their motives behind the information they're putting out, it's total BS and I can't listen to it. And Dane was the first one that really hit home with me because he threatened me for saying I was going to come to his event and pass out flyers and give out flyers on orgone energy. So because I put that announcement out there, that was it. So he actually called and told me not to go, that it's really not the right thing to do, and that orgone energy is not part of what he does, and that he would lose all his government and military contacts if he allowed any information on.
And that's a direct quote, I believe.
Yes, it was what he said. But a lot of people know already about Dane. What they don't know is that they're all the same.
Every single
one of them. So
all.
I don't listen to them anymore, any of them. Anybody who talks about orgone energy and really how to clean the atmosphere and about the energetic properties, that's who I listen to. That's why I listen to Ken Rolla, George Ritchell, and Dwayne Gardner. Those are the guys that know.
Yeah, and we can't listen to the hysterical 5G videos on YouTube anymore. I mean, look at who's putting these videos up. Did they use Wi-Fi to do it?
It's a good point.
Are they on their smartphone all the time? Well, guess what? They're contributing to the EMF problem. Stop contributing to the problem and be part of the solution.
I got more news for you. Everybody in the independent media is on their smartphone all the time. They're constantly on Skype taking messages, and it's smartphone city out there. So that's just how it is. And I just want to take a moment now because it's been a little while since this happened, but I do want to pay my respects to Jim Mars because
yes,
I was just remembering when I was working with him, and I call him up, but I called him at his home, and he had his head on his shoulders. This guy really had his wits about him till the end, and really stood out to me as a human being and as a journalist in the independent media and a good friend. So I do want to say this. It's been a while since he passed away earlier this month, and we didn't do an episode for a while. So I do want to say it now because now I'm talking about the independent media, and the one guy that really stood out to the end was Jim Mars, and I'm honored to have gotten to interview him on the show with Gabriel, and also to have done some episodes of The View from Mars with him back at the Talk Network a couple years ago, which is how I met him. So he wasn't a victim of the EMF in the same way, and I could really see it. Some of the older generation in the media and in journalism, they're different. They're not all about tweeting and being on Skype all the time. They're actually involved in heavy research. So I really appreciate the older generation and people like Jim Mars that really have integrity.
Yeah, no tweeting for Jim Mars.
just research, hard work, and presenting information. And that's what I strive to do. And I think I probably spend quite a bit more time on the internet than people of that generation. But I don't tweet. I try to just spend my time doing research and writing. And I really have been working very hard not to have my attention diverted too much from the endless distractions, because it's so easy to get into a YouTube wormhole. Mm-hmm. I've done it. I went down a transgender, transvestigating wormhole till I made myself sick. And then I realized what I was doing to myself. And I said, this has got to stop. They're all transgender. Let's just move on.
You broke yourself away from that pretty soon thereafter.
Right.
But I think, and yes, rest in peace, Jim. You will be missed. And I think you would agree with us when we're saying that if the government says it, it's fake.
For the most part. He does reference a lot of history and facts that have to do with the government and stuff that's finally come out. And I do it too. It's important to let people know what they're saying, But then we also have to kind of analyze it. And I think that Jim was great at that. And that's what I strive to do. So I do reference government documents in my work, but I do take it with a grain of salt too. It's just important to know what they're saying. And they don't really have that much power. Let's be honest.
They don't have any power, actually, is what we've been learning over the past year and a half or so. It's a crazy wormhole.
Well, they don't have any power, so they want us to think they do, right? Well, they're again diverting attention away from who is really behind this control grid on Earth, which is extraterrestrials. Wilhelm Reich figured it out, and many, many others after him have figured it out. Anybody who's gotten really deeply involved in etheric warfare and actually getting down and dirty and cleaning the sky,
Yes.
will know that these are multidimensional entities doing this. They're an artificial intelligence. They're not human. And to give our military, I slip up and say that, the military, not mine, to give the military that kind of gravitas is preposterous. These are human beings. If they do have the technology, they got it from extraterrestrials, and they probably don't have the technology and just want you to be scared. So I've heard a lot about smart dust and all the particulates. And this is, again, an excuse for the multidimensional entities who are really doing this stuff. They can read our minds. They don't need smart dust. Well, the smart dust is to make it seem like humans are doing it. They're not doing it. These ETs have got to go. These are the ones from They Live.
Well, as far as
those
I'm
monsters
concerned,
on They Live.
As far as I'm concerned, the entire military is just there as a cover-up for the extra-dimensional agenda.
That, and to fight bankers' wars.
That too. But chiefly the former.
Well, the big cover-up here is orgone energy. And it always comes back to it. It's two things here. There's two things going on. There's dark and light. And that's what's going on. There's the evil and the good. It's totally that last battle. It is the apocalypse. And we're living it. But we have to ask ourselves, what does that mean? Is the world ending? No, their world is ending. The parasite's world is ending. And this is what Stephen Hawking said recently.
Yep.
He was saying
if you
that
go back
humans,
a couple videos in our sequence, you can find him speaking on behalf of the parasites.
And he says that humans are going to have to go. If you listen to what he says and you read his words, you can listen back to that episode. And I did also write up a little article about it on the blog, thekembo.tumblr.com. But if you listen to what he's saying we're extincting ourselves. But what he's doing is he's talking about the parasitic entities, actually. And if you read between the lines and you think of what he's saying on behalf of the parasites instead of the humans, you could see what he's doing. He's saying humans will have to leave if we are to survive. He says something like that. Humans are to leave if we are to survive.
Well, who is humans and who is we?
You've got to look at that.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a big cover-up of the ET activity. It's a big cover-up of orgone energy versus deadly orgone radiation, which is immobilized life force. That's their food. That's life to them because they're inverted. They're not human. They're not life, actually. They're artificial intelligence. They've been sucking off the life energy of this planet for tens of thousands of years at least, and it's time to get rid of them. They need to go.
And guess what? Orgone energy is still the solution to 5G. So enough of the hysteria already.
Yeah, I mean, we're worried about surveillance. We're worried about EMF. They can read our minds already, and the EMF is there already. So we've got to get with the program, get this dangerous stuff out of our lives, get life force energy into our lives, and that will repel them. We've got to get to the root source here, get rid of the parasites, and heal ourselves and our world.
Get rid of the devices. Don't participate.
Move out of the city.
That's another one,
And you've got to file your assumed name certificate if you want to be free. If you don't understand it, it's great to first learn about it before doing it so you can use it once you do it. But you've got to understand who you are. The only reason that government has any control over you is because you think you're the name on the birth certificate and you haven't registered it properly. That's a business. You're supposed to register it, use it in business, and break the contract between that entity and the U.S. We've got tons of stuff on this too. So just look back a few videos. But here's another one. The ANC is also the solution to 5G, and I'll tell you why. If they put an antenna outside of your home on a post, on an electrical pole. Did you know that whoever owns the property, it has to be a registered business though. You have to register your legal name to do this. But if you have that property held under your business entity's name, you know the property goes into the middle of the street.
Halfway out.
That's why you're responsible for the sewers, not the city. You're responsible for the sidewalk, not the city. Guess what? If that 5G antenna is on your property, or your business property as it's supposed to be, then it can't be there. If you've registered the ANC, your business entity has no contract with Verizon or whatever city or state you live in. So if you filed the ANC, you could say, no, that can't be there, and they would have to remove it. It might go to court, probably not. They don't want you in their court. Because once you file the ANC, yeah, because it's a court of the dead. And if you have, if you still identify as being the dead fiction, that is your legal name, then you're in the court of the dead. And
you're dead too.
And you're dead too. Once you've registered it, you're just representing it. It's your business entity. You're a living man. You're not in commerce.
Or woman.
And you can tell that business, Verizon or Nokia or whoever is putting that thing outside of your business property, that it cannot be on your business property. Absolutely.
Or the CEO of that company will be held personally liable. And because that CEO has not registered his or her legal name as a business entity, guess what? They're a sitting duck.
So there you go. Those are some solutions to 5G. They're all there. Keep in mind, 5G, again, is just there to cover up what's already going on energetically on this earth. It's just another layer of deception. The energetic war has been well underway for eons. They're up there in the atmosphere, in ships. We see them. Wilhelm Reich saw them. They DORize the atmosphere from afar, and they are controlling us only because we haven't yet figured out that our life force energy defeats them. Once we figure that out, they're gone.
That's right. Now, you sort of glossed over this, Sharon, to move out of the city. I realize that's something most people can't just do at the drop of a hat, but we do have to look around. If you're living in a city, you do have to understand what's going on here and start to take some steps to get out of that lifestyle. It's something that you may be ingrained in, and you may have a job that's very... a matrix job, to be frank about it. You may have all of these things that you've invested your time and your money in, but you can't live like it's the mid-90s anymore. It just doesn't work that way anymore.
Nope.
You've got to start getting out of the city. It's not possible to live the way the city lifestyle anymore.
You can't live well in the city. And speaking of the city, coming up on an episode very soon, how business owners on Venice Boulevard could use the ANC to undo Agenda 21.
That's right.
So that would be
more to come later.
Yeah,
it's a tease.
But the ANC, it's everything. There's two things. The ANC is everything you need in your legal life, and Orgone Energy is everything you need in your life.
Your energetic life.
Which is you.
Because you are energetic. We are all energetic beings. And it's time to stop participating in the destruction and start taking back what is ours.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Human Frequency. Thanks for your open-mindedness about looking at your own life and seeing what you can do about 5G. It's in our control. It's in our power. So take back your power.
That's right.
Like the Smart Meter movie.
Always has been, always will be. There's always a solution to every problem that comes our way. Thank you for listening. Please check out our website, thekembo.com. Find links to our YouTube channel, which you are listening to right now, perhaps, and our blog and our Etsy store. Thank you, all of you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.